Hi everyone, Titus here for another Unreal Engine tutorial, and in this video I'll show you how to quickly create a simple Ragdoll physics function that we can apply to enemies and player characters to achieve that iconic death animation. Let's not waste any time and jump right into it. Alright, so we got our third person template up here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change our player character to be, instead of Quinn, I'm going to do Manny. So I'll come to third person, blueprints, and then I'll double click on the BP third person character. From the viewport, I can select the mesh in the components list, come down to the skeletal mesh asset, change it from Quinn simple to Manny simple. Compile and save, and we go back. We're now playing as Manny. Alright. So to demonstrate Ragdoll, you generally need a physics asset. Unfortunately, the starter content comes with one, but if you have a skeletal mesh, you can actually create one right off the skeleton if you need to. But in the character section, we'll go in the mannequins folder, and then there's a rigs folder, and this is good on Unreal Engine 5.3, and you'll see all the different rigs, but you'll notice there's only one physics asset, and that's because Quinn and Manny share the same physics asset, or the same setup basically. Quinn is actually a child of Manny, which is interesting because you may have just realized that Quinn and Manny are actually mannequin or mannequin. So a nice little play on words there if you didn't catch that the first time around. But we can double click and open the physics asset, and you're going to see a bone structure with capsule colliders on each of the bones. Now you can go in and make all sorts of fine-tune adjustments, but be careful. Usually the defaults are good. If you start changing things, like just as an example, we can simulate just to see what it looks like on the defaults. You just click the simulate button at the top. If you don't see it, just click this arrow and then hit simulate. And that looks pretty good. But if you start messing with these colliders, like if say I scale this one really big, and then I make this one really big, and then maybe I'll make that one large, you can get really weird kind of results here. Let me go into another one here. Let's see what this one looks like if we try to make it bigger, if I even can. Kind of get some weirdness there. Let's make the leg big. Oh, there you go. You can really get some strange behavior with some of these components here. So if you find that when you're simulating your Ragdoll physics, if the reaction is too violent, you may need to come into the skeletal mesh and maybe bump down some of these capsule colliders because they can get a little crazy. But let me see if I can make these a little bit smaller. I mean, sometimes it's okay to make small adjustments too, because maybe those are the effects that you kind of want to go for in your project. I guess it just kind of depends. Make that smaller here. Alright, that looks normal. Okay, so we got our mannequin all set up here. So let's go back to our BP third person character. We gotta make some adjustments real quick. The first thing we'll want to check is under the capsule component. I'm going to search for collision, and you want to make sure the collision set is actually set to pawn. But on the character mesh, we want to set the collision preset from character mesh to Ragdoll. You can compile and save that. And now what we need to do is basically create some sort of keyboard input to actually simulate the Ragdoll through code. So it's pretty easy. We'll just right click and do a keyboard search. I'm just going to use the number 1, and then I'm going to drag out my character mesh. I can drag off that and do a search for set simulate physics. Be this one right here. I can check the box to simulate the physics, hook up the execution pin. And then another good thing to do if you're doing any type of ragdoll is you generally want to disable movement. So we can select our character movement from the component section, drag it out, and then there's a function inside this script called disable movement. So you can actually just call that function, hook up the pins, compile and save, and then you should be good to test this out. So if you're moving around, you just press 1, your character should ragdoll like that. Now if you wanted to trigger the ragdoll through dynamically through the level, we can maybe do that. Let's create a new blueprint. We'll do of type actor. We'll call it BP underscore maybe swing arm. Let's open this up. I'm going to add a cube, and then I'm going to scale it along here. And then I'm going to add a collider. So I'll maybe do a box collision. And then I'm going to scale it out. Just so it's slightly around the bounding box there. Now what I can do is if I go to the event graph of my little swing arm, on the begin overlap, I can actually drag out and do a cast to BP third person character, or whatever your default pawn is. I can hook up my other actor into my object tab there. And now we can create a function inside the character that we can call. So what we'll do is we'll do custom event. It's right here. We'll just call it Ragdoll. And then I can just alt click, drag this up here, hook this up, and then off this, I will compile first and I'll do a search for Ragdoll. That way my keyboard press will still work, but I can also come into the swing arm, drag off the third person pin, search for Ragdoll, and then I can trigger it that way as well. So now my blueprint's set up. One last thing is let's maybe make this thing move. So we can go to the add and search for a rotating movement script. Add that on there. The default is to swing 180 degrees in the Z axis. So if I simulate that, it gives me the effect that I'm looking for. So we can compile, save, drag this over here. And now if I play the game, if I walk in and I get hit by this thing, our Manny basically will ragdoll out and we can't move anymore. So if you're trying to create some sort of obstacle assault course or something, this would be a good way to do it. And then our other way too is we still have the keyboard event, so I can press 1 and then ragdoll out as well. Another way you can call the ragdoll function as well is you can do it through the level blueprint. So like if we were to add in a basic trigger box, like maybe something like right there, you can click here and go into your level blueprint. Because this was our last object selected, so it's highlighted, when you go to the level blueprint, you can right click and you'll have these two items at the top here. If we go into the event, there's a collision subsection, and inside there's an add on actor begin overlap. And then what you can do is kind of more of the same. You just drag off this and do a cast. And we're casting to our main character that we're playing, which is the third person character. We'll hook the other actor into the object pin here. And on a successful cast, we will drag out and we will search for Ragdoll. Pretty basic. If I compile and save, now if I come over here and I just hit that trigger box, it'll automatically go into the Ragdoll state there. So there's many different ways you can trigger the Ragdoll code. You can do it through a health system as well. When your health reaches 0, just trigger Ragdoll and disable movement. So pretty basic, but alright, good people. Just wanted to throw a quick and short video on Ragdoll setups, but as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and see you on the next one.